The work of God Himself is the vision that man must know, for the work of God cannot be achieved by man, and is not possessed by man. The three stages of work are the entirety of God's management, and there is no greater vision that should be known by man. If man does not know this mighty vision, then it is not easy to know God, and not easy to understand God's will. And furthermore, the path that man walks upon becomes increasingly arduous. Without visions, man would not have been able to come this far. It is the visions that have safeguarded man until today, and which have provided the greatest protection to man. In the future, your knowledge must become deeper, and you must come to know the entirety of His will and the substance of His wise work in the three stages of work. Only this is your true stature. The final stage of work does not stand alone, but is part of the whole formed together with the two previous stages, which is to say that it is impossible to complete the entire work of salvation by only doing one of the three stages of work. Even though the final stage of work is able to fully save man, this does not mean that it is only necessary to carry out this single stage on its own, and that the two previous stages of work are not required to save man from the influence of Satan. No single stage of the three stages can be held up as the only vision that must be known by all mankind. For the entirety of the work of salvation is the three stages of work, not a single stage among them. As long as the work of salvation has not been accomplished, the management of God will be unable to come to a complete end. God's being, disposition, and wisdom are expressed in the entirety of the work of salvation, not revealed to man at the very beginning, but have been gradually expressed in the work of salvation. Each stage of the work of salvation expresses part of the disposition of God and part of His being. Not every stage of work can directly and completely express the entirety of God's being. As such, the work of salvation can only be fully concluded once the three stages of work have been completed. And so man's knowledge of the entirety of God is inseparable from the three stages of God's work. What man gains from one stage of work is merely the disposition of God that is expressed in a single part of His work. It cannot represent the disposition and being that is expressed in the stages before or after. That is because the work of saving mankind cannot be finished straight away during one period, or in one location, but gradually becomes deeper according to man's level of development at different times and places. It is work that is carried out in stages, and is not completed in a single stage. And so, God's entire wisdom is crystallized in the three stages, rather than in one individual stage. His entire being and entire wisdom are laid forth in these three stages, and each stage contains His being, and is a record of the wisdom of His work. Man should know the entire disposition of God expressed in these three stages. All this of God's being is of the utmost importance to all mankind. And if people do not have this knowledge when they worship God, then they are no different from those who worship Buddha. God's work among man is not hidden from man, and should be known by all of those who worship God. Since God has carried out the 3 stages of the work of salvation among man, man should know the expression of what he has and is during these 3 stages of work. This is what must be done by man. What God hides from man is that which man is incapable of achieving, and that which man should not know, whereas that which God shows to man is that which man should know, and that which man should possess. Each of the 3 stages of work is carried out upon the foundation of the previous stage. It is not carried out independently, separate from the work of salvation. Though there are great differences in the age and type of work that is carried out, at its core is still the salvation of mankind. And each stage of the work of salvation is deeper than the last.